Hello, Serge here from the Backyard Range. Okay, we have this really isn't a question, it's in your own words from Alan Fisher. Again, this is Alan sending in some good thoughts now that he's been to one of our golf schools. And this is some good comments that he came into and describing in his words, and that's why I'm bringing it to you. So, from Alan Fisher, here we go. Hi, Don. A couple things on my mind that I hope you find helpful regarding explaining the PPGS. Now that tax season is over, I am finally able to put some work on my swing. Okay, work and thought in your swing, that's great. The issue that is really helping me is the thing you said about how your, and in parentheses he has Don's, that posture had become too upright and it started squatting a bit instead of just bending over. I've been getting into a setup where I was getting more this way than this way. Okay, so he's talking about I had lost my 30 degrees angles here, and I had lost myself where I was bent over and my hips were pushed out, so I get into what we call the accordion effect to get into the athletically ready position. I was getting a little bit more closely affiliated with what most of us were taught years and years ago, was to kind of like sit on a little bit of a bar stool, which gets the weight on the heels rather than keeping them in the arches. Okay, ready's in the arches. Sit down on your heels. And the big important thing to that is that rotational swings, where you're swinging around your body more, you have to have your weight back on your heels to help counterbalance your support. This way, when all your arms and club are way back there. To make the peak performance golf swing, you have to be in your arches so that you have the proper bend so you can lift your arms straight up. And Alan's going to talk about that. So I'm just preluding here to something Alan's going to really get to. Think of it this way. If one bends over the hips at 90 degrees, it is impossible to swing one's arms up with a club into the sacred burial ground with any sort of natural shoulder turning motion. So he's saying if you got yourself all the way to 90 degrees, there's no way you can make a big turn and go into the sacred burial ground. All right? Now you can stand here and do this all day, but again, you're going to be a little bit too close to the ground, but it's over-exaggeration of a point. You can't go deep and inside. You can't overturn, get in the sacred burial ground, get flat and laid off, and all those problems. And in reality, if you're here, you can't really go that far that way. But all you can do is swing your arms up and down, and that's what we want in a peak performance golf swing. But if one's standing straight vertical, it is impossible not to swing the arms in the sacred burial ground with the golf club. And I like what he said. It is impossible not to, because if you're standing straight up, you can't swing vertical because now you're going to fall backwards. So the only thing you can do is you have to get the club in the arms somewhat back to the body, and that's why eventually your brain figures out to have any sort of balance. You're going to get your feet under you more and the weight on your heels, and now you can swing around you great. That's why one of the first things I have to teach every one of our certified instructors is that as soon as the first thing you're going to see with everybody in a rotational swing is their feet are way under them. Draw a line from the hips to the ground. It should be at the ankles. Them, it's at their heels or behind it. They got to be on their heels. And so when we're going to turn them over and turn them into vertical swingers, first thing we have to do is we have to get them back and get them ready, because you can't swing your arms up on your heels. Because if you swing it up on your heels, you're going to fall backwards. The only thing you can do is swing it around, because that's the balance point that you have to have with a rotational swing. So we have to get them. So Alan, that's what Alan's talking to. Second, and related obvious observations, is that in order to swing up like a Pop-Tart coming out of the toaster, one has to start down in the toaster. One has to be down before one can come up. And he got D-U-H. However, with the almost upright posture of most of today's golfers, one cannot come up since one has never been down. They've been around. Okay? And the only place they can go is back around the other way. Because again, action, reaction. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You know my statement about rotation and being a sacred burial ground. What goes around, comes around. And for vertical, what goes straight up, comes straight down and can go straight up. All right? So, however, the almost upright posture of most of today's golfers, one cannot come up since one has never been down. If one starts their swing already up, the only thing one can do is turn around. This is the rotational swing. In fact, most golfers now seem to have to go down to get to the ball. The PPGS vertical golf swing physically requires more of a bent over posture and setup than the rotational swing. It looks to me like the pros using the rotational swing want to bend over only the minimum amount needed to get their arms to hang straight down freely to hold the club. That is why there seems to be a lot of variation in the pros of the angle of their back at their setup. Okay, so great observations, and this is exactly true. The setup determines the motion, and I guess we could say it is a totally different setup that one has to have for the rotational swing versus the peak performance swing. And what happens to most Surgites who are rotational, because about 99% of all instruction today is rotational, and they try to go to the performance golf swing, which has to be vertical, they get caught in the middle. Their weight is still a little bit too much towards their heels, and even though they're trying to lift the club, they end up that they can't lift it as much because of the fact that if they did truly lift it, they would lose their balance. So their balance mechanism, or balance buddy as I call it, checks it, steps in and says, "Oh, I can't let you go there because you're going to fall down. So we're gonna adjust a little bit over here, and then get a little flat over here on this side. It's going to go that side." And so they get caught with that, and/or in some cases, if they do get it, they got the other typical things of too much forward knee movement. I've had people think they're holding it as firm as it could be, and they're still moving it in like crazy. The knee comes in, that goes back, and then you go down, and then when you go down like this, slightly ahead, you're going to go back in rotational. So but I think in most cases, many of you are really out of sync because of the setup. You're kind of like in between, athletically ready, the accordion effect, and kind of sitting on the bar stool, which is going to still keep you somewhat rotational. You'll be more vertical, but you still be caught in the middle between vertical and rotational, and therefore you got this thing that you're caught in between. You can hit good shots every now and then when you can line up the ducks, and then you can hit some mediocre ones to ugly ones too. So you gotta work at the setup determines the motion is critical, and let us not forget alignment, because alignment can cause big problems in all of this too. Okay, so great observations from Alan on this concept of your posture. Ready. We push the bar stool away when we do the accordion effect. We don't kind of, just a little bit sit on the bar stool. We push it away. So we get that curvature in the back, the hips are out, and now you can lift your arms up and swing up to the tee finish. Okay, that's it from Alan and the Surge for today, and we'll be talking with you all again soon.